Hey everyone, Jeremy here. It's Wednesday in the afternoon. It's a little bit earlier than what I usually stream at. I think like an hour earlier. I have some things to do tonight, so I wanted to kind of wrap up early. But yeah, so like let's draw our art. It's Wednesday afternoon. Why not? Um, what am I going to draw tonight? So I've been getting a lot of questions from people about my charcoal drawings. I've been doing a lot of charcoal drawings lately, especially with pets. And I'm not doing a pet tonight. I'm a little burnt out on pets. I'll get back to pets like later in the week, probably, or I don't know, tomorrow maybe. But I've been getting a lot of these questions about how to draw with charcoal, and I'm not really great at it. Like, there's a lot of room for improvement, but I kind of have at least like a technique down a little bit where, like I can kind of muddle through working on highlights, midtones, and shadows, and I kind of like it. I've talked about it a little bit before. It's nothing I came up with on my own. I've just been watching tutorials the same as anybody else. But I figured I'd kind of walk through that tonight, and instead of just posting a video up with some nice music, I know people have said that they've enjoyed that. Instead of just doing that, I thought I'd kind of walk through the process. And if I've done this before and you guys have heard all this before, I do apologize, but I'm going to do it again anyway. Um, but instead of doing a pet, I think I'm going to do a portrait. I like that's kind of my comfort zone. So if I'm going to explain a technique that I'm used to using, might as well do that. So let's just jump right in. I don't have any reference art. I didn't have time to prepare. I've got a picture up on my computer that I'm going to kind of loosely go off of, but we'll see how it goes. So I got some paper here. It is Wednesday night, so I'm drinking some bourbon because I have nothing else to do tonight. That's not true. I'm always busy, but I am. So the I've kind of switched it up a little bit. So I used to just jump in and kind of just make a big old mess um, on the paper to kind of get a base tone in there. I've kind of changed that up a little bit to where I've got this new technique that I picked up from somebody. So I go through and I sharpen pencils, right? I do it all the time. And the way I sharpen my charcoal pencils is I use sandpaper. So this is like a bunch of hey, hold on one second. Hey, Vertigo, how's it going, man? Yeah, I decided to do one earlier tonight, just to break it up a little bit. But anyway, so like I sharpen my pencils with sandpaper. So like if I wanted to sharpen this pencil, I just go like that. You can see that the pencils kind of whittle down some because charcoal and some of the other dry medium that I use is so soft. If you use like a regular pencil sharpener, they tend to break. So what I do is I kind of like whittle. Hey Packer, man, I got Vertigo and Packer in here tonight. This is awesome. That's not Shazam. That's Splash, dude. Close though, close. They have similar logos. Um, so I just use sandpaper to sharpen my pencils, and then what you end up with is like all this mess, right? So like I try to collect it with a like just a bowl or something like that, and it really doesn't matter what you collect it with, but that's what I do. And then lately, lightning the horse. Yeah, I actually drew a horse today. So like if you check out my shorts, that was in my project earlier today. I think it turned out pretty good. So the the idea here is that you want to kind of like lessen the workload on midtones and just focus on creating highlights and creating shadows, right? And there's many ways to do that. Some people start with tone paper. I recently picked up some black paper that I've been playing with. Maybe you guys have seen some of those pictures. But if you don't have tone paper or you just prefer to use white paper, and there's benefits to using white paper because I'll show you how nice this effect works. You can kind of tone your paper by just coming in here, grabbing some of your stuff that you collected while sharpening your pencils, and just drop it on the page, right? So you can see it kind of flows this way. That's because my air conditioner is over here on the floor beside me and it's kind of like picking it up. But you just kind of like, drop it on the page. And I've got a fan brush here. And then what I do is I kind of smooth it out. So this has the effect of creating tone paper out of white paper. Thunderbolts. It's a Flash logo, guys. It's not Shazam. It has nothing to do with, well, I guess it has to do with lightning. I think that's where Flash's powers come from. I don't know. You guys need to watch more comic book movies. Like it's not like there's not enough of them. I don't know what year it's supposed to come out. I think it's supposed to come out this year, maybe during the summer. But there is a new Flash movie coming out, and it's supposed to be based on uh, what was it? Flashpoint, I think. Sorry about the dogs. Um, Based on the Flashpoint Point comics, which is kind of like he has the ability to kind of travel through time by going super fast, kind of like Superman at the end of the Superman movie. You know, if you go fast enough, you can reverse time and so on. But yeah, so and then there's like multiple universes and things like that. He's got those kind of abilities in addition to just being super fast. So as you can see, I'm just kind of making a mess here, and you guys have seen me create messes in other ways. Like sometimes I'll just come in and I'll just scribble and then I'll like wipe that out. But I like this better because it creates this nice little soft tone that's easy to erase, and I'll explain why the erasing is important here in a minute. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it. It's to create highlights, but I'll show you how that works here in a minute. So once you've got like a tone paper, and you can go like further with this if you want, but I kind of like this look. Then you come in and you start kind of sketching out like what the base shape of your thing that you're drawing is. And in this case, we're drawing a person's head, a female head actually. So there's two ways to do that. You can use a very soft pencil. So like I've got a medium pencil here. It creates like light lines. So I can come in, I can start drawing lines with it. Or you have these like bigger sticks, and there's a bunch of variety in charcoal where you can get like, I don't know, like they're called vines. They're just basically a stick of charcoal that's smaller than this. But I like using this to kind of just block out, you know, where things might be. And of course, I'm not like committed to any of these, but I know that this lady is going to basically have her head kind of pointing down at an angle. So I'll just kind of create that basic shape. Now there's some drawing tutorials out there. They'll tell you how to like block off heads in a more like predictable way, but I like to just come in and draw. I don't really care too much how it turns out. So you can draw like all the different shapes and stuff, and like draw lines. What is it called? The Loomis method or something for blocking out a head. I just kind of do it eyeball. It's not the best way. Like sometimes I run into issues where like things are out of proportion. I didn't really do it well, but I'm trying to get into the habit of drawing like things I see, right? So I want to be able to draw things just by eyeballing things. I, there's a lot of technical terms coming out here. So I know that the neck is basically going to be here. I know that the hair is going to come down, cross her head back here. And notice how I'm not trying to be like super detailed here. I'm just trying to get in the big shapes that I see. So the big shapes is, you know, she's got a head. It's a pretty big head. It takes up a lot of the frame. So I know that this is all going to be hair. I know that her face is kind of at a slope here. She's not looking down. When I get to the eyes, she's actually looking up, but her head is down as if she's like looking up. And then she has hair that drapes off over here. So again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it because I know that many of these lines are probably going to move as I go along, and I realize I've made mistakes. Part of being good at drawing is learning how to fix mistakes, because I know I make a lot of them, and sometimes I don't fix them. Sometimes I just leave them in there. I guess my art style is kind of towards realism, but it's not like hyper realism. I'm not really trying to make things perfect. So her hair comes down across her forehead like this. Her hairline kind of goes up like that. Just scribbling it in. Now you can see she's got all this gunk on her face. That's not how it's going to be in the end, but it does create this nice little midtone to work from. Let's see. Yeah, the Flash movie is going to have Superwoman in it, Batman, not just Batman, but the Michael Keaton Batman. Um, so, like there's been a lot of these comic book movies that are doing that now, where you're dealing with multiple realities and borrowing from other movies, like as a way to justify all the movies being interconnected. I like that. I think it's kind of cool. So on this side, so the light source is kind of coming down this way. So on this side, this line of her face is going to be kind of dark. So I'm just going to set myself a reminder there. All of this is going to be dark. All right, so that's the big shape, right? So I can continue working with this big clunky thing, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm going to move into using my pencil so that I can kind of further refine the big shape and start putting in some, like some smaller shapes. Because like I don't want to use that big chunky thing to kind of further refine this side of her face because there is like a lot of shape here. So now I got to kind of figure out where things are, right? So as a general rule, your eyeball is going to be kind of in the middle. Like if you take your head and you take your chin, or the top of your head and your chin, your eyeballs are going to kind of be in the middle. That's the generality. People's faces and shapes of people's faces, they all differ. They're all different. In this case, the actual top of her head is going to be up here because she's kind of looking down, right? So like if you were looking at her straight on, you'd be looking at this here as the top of her head. So her eyes are actually going to be a little further up. And I'm going to eyeball it and think that they're like right here, which I think is generally correct. And if this comes out looking kind of weird, like her face is misshapen, then I'll just say that that was a style choice. So if that's where her eyes are, then her eyebrows are going to be kind of up here. They're close to the eyes. Yeah, I think that's right. So they're close to the eyes, but they're not at the same level as the eyes. So if that's the case, then generally speaking, the nose is going to be right around here-ish, and then her mouth is going to be right around here. So about halfway between her nose and her chin, and this is how you kind of eyeball proportions. To a greater or lesser degree. I'm still learning, all right? So like if you're watching this channel for the first time, well, for one, be sure to subscribe so I can bring you more nonsense. But if you are just getting to know me, just realize that I do a lot of experimentation. I'm learning drawing, probably same as you. Sometimes it comes out looking all right. Sometimes, and most times, there's problems with it. But I post it up anyway. There's no selection bias here. I'm going to post my failures as well as my successes. That's it. Generally speaking, your mouth is going to be about halfway between the nose and the chin, and this is kind of how you eyeball reality. Like I would like to be now. There's no woman in this room right now that I'm drawing, but I would like to be able to draw somebody out on the street or at a bar or something like that, just for fun. I would like to draw them in person. And of course, you're not going to be able to like pull out a ruler and measure her face or anything like that. So you got to get in the habit, by you, I mean me, I've got to get in the habit of kind of like working things out in proportions to others. So in proportion to her chin and in proportion to her nose, her mouth is going to be right around here. So her mouth kind of curves on the top lip in. This is why I didn't spend too much time over here and didn't want to use the big thing. We're kind of taking that big shape and kind of carving off pieces now. And then the bottom lip kind of comes back out like this. So you kind of get this nice little mouth effect. There's the feature called the Cupid's bow, which is like the little indentation of your mouth. It's kind of right there. And I'm not set in stone on these lines. I can always change them later. But basically, you got kind of like a heart shape look there. Kind of comes down. Now, I don't know where it's going to end yet. So I'm just kind of loosely drawing that because that is in proportion to the eyes, which I'll get to in a minute. So the bottom of her lip, uh, in this particular picture, the light is coming from here. So all of this is going to be in shadow. So I can kind of add some more charcoal, which I will blend out later. When choosing reference photos, I like to choose pictures that have like high contrast, and this one does. And I really like that because then you get to play with the lights and the shadows as you would in a bar, you know? So her chin is actually kind of small, not like mine. Mine is super huge, kind of curves around like that. And then there's a distance here that I think I've screwed up. So you see I have this line here. Well, I don't think that line's correct. I think it's actually further in, not here. Again, eyeballing it. So I'll adjust that line. And then I'll scribble over this one so that I know that work that into the hair, you'll never see it, right? So that's great. I think this should actually be down a little bit more, which would make this down a little bit more. So notice I'm using light lines. That's so that I can make these adjustments without worrying about anything. Because like the darker it is, the harder it is to erase or work over and things like that. You know, it's like working with ink. So her nose kind of pokes up and it kind of comes outside of this general shape. About like that. I'll work on the shape of it later. She's got a little bit of a hump here. Uh, you know, everybody's got something. She's got like a little bit of a hump on her nose. Kind of like that. And then there's, because her head is turned so far, you only see like a little part of her eye over here. So really what you see is this kind of like eye indentation. The eye kind of comes around. And then most of the eye is kind of lost in shadow over here. So let me go ahead and shadow that in. And then this part's going to be in shadow. Her lip is in shadow. And the reason why I'm at the bottom lip is actually surprisingly, not surprisingly, it's just nature. It's pretty highlighted. So I'm just going to leave that as. This is all going to be shadow here. Now notice there's no real detail yet. I'm just kind of working in shadows, right? And it's great because like the shadows kind of inform you where everything is. And then you can kind of like base things off of it. So I know that her mouth is going to be basically lined up with the end of her mouth. If you draw a line, it's kind of like at the end of her eye here. So now I know where to put the eye, right? I mean, it's great. I love this technique. And notice, you know, I didn't start with a drawing or anything like that. I'm not measuring with a ruler or anything. I'm just eyeballing. And it's tough because, like, it's tough to get a perfect likeness to somebody like this. But it is a lot of fun. And if you get frustrated with it, just remember it's just practice, 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 practice. You get better at it. I'm getting better at it. I'm not perfect yet, but I am getting better at it. And just remember that, you know, well-seasoned artists, they also have trouble capturing the likeness of people. So you're in good company there. So the shape of her eye kind of dips down around her eyeball, and then kind of pulls out to these little tapered areas at the ends. Again, not going for a lot of detail at this point. I'll worry about the shape of her eyes later. I'm just kind of figuring out where the proportions are. So I can see now that the distance between here and here, I need a little more space. So I'm going to move the hair back just by drawing a darker line. And then now I know that this stuff over here just kind of gets faded in with everything else as I blend and erase and so on. So I'm actually going to move her hairline. So where I guessed before, I was incorrect. So I'm going to make that adjustment. And this method definitely allows you to make adjustments like that because you end up blending in a lot of these features. So I know that she's got some shadow under her eye. She's got some shadow over her eye. I'm just scribbling. No, no crazy art skills here at this moment. Um, and then this part here, I always forget this part, but like I put this stuff in shadows too, which is fine. You can like erase and pull those shadows out and create highlights out of them. But generally speaking, this part of the eye is usually not in shadow, or the shadow's going to be different on it. Excuse me, I just burped. I had a pretty good dinner. Um, so she's got like a little bit of a eyelid there, eye flap, whatever you want to call it. All right, so that looks good, I think. But I noticed that the distance between here, this is about where that shadow would end, and here, there's too much distance, so I'm going to actually bring this other eye in a little bit. So you notice how I'm basing my measurements off of other objects I've already drawn. So I know that the edge of this eye and then this shadow is only going to extend across so far. So I know that this has to actually come in a little bit more because it was too far out. And then this is going to be the eyebrow. And notice how I'm not drawing like this. I've gotten in the habit of reaching across the page and treating it more like a paintbrush. I definitely recommend that as well. So this is going to curve in a little bit more. And I think this is cool. This is starting to look like a person's face, particularly her face. So I don't know if I've captured her likeness yet. We'll have to wait and see. But I feel like I'm off to a good start. So the bottom of her chin, like this area here, is all covered in shadow. So I'll go ahead and shadow that in. Now, what I do is I just kind of scribble. You can use something a little more precise. I'm not in that habit. You can do like cross hatching or something like that. She's got a little bit of shadow coming down through here. This is a little bit darker, so let me make that darker. And then all of her neck is in shadow because, you know, hair and light. Things blocking the light. There you go. So her neck actually kind of comes off the page. I'm not going to draw all that just because you have to find like a good frame, like crop, I guess, for your picture. I think that this is fine, especially for like demonstration purposes. I would have put more thought into the composition. Literally, I came up with this picture like 5 minutes before going live. I just wanted a high contrast picture because that's what I like to draw when it comes to portraits. Or actually, it's just what I like to draw anyway. Like the horse I drew earlier today, you can check that out if you check out the shorts. Same deal. I like playing with shadows and lights, and that's kind of where I enjoy being. All right, so how else can we create depth in this picture? Well, first off, let's give her a gaze. She's actually looking up in this photo, which I think is so cool. It's, you know, a lot of times when you draw portraits, you like draw them like where they're looking right at you. I find that to be not as interesting as drawing a portrait of a person who has some sort of expression on their face. So this one's kind of cool. She's like looking up for whatever reason. So I'm going to put that eyeball in there. And then over here, you can't even see the eyeball. Kind of turn this all dark because that's just going to be kind of hair. She does have a bigger nose than some. It is kind of curved up, and I'm afraid I might lose that here. So let me draw a line to kind of remind myself. So like, as you can see, I'm making little adjustments here and there to kind of form it a little bit better. Again, none of this is set in stone. I can still move things around because it's so light. I can, if I hate it, I can just erase the whole part of it, come back in, add some more tone to it, and it's almost like that part never existed. It's only as I become more comfortable with something will I like apply any pressure and create it like a darker line. So I feel comfortable that this is going to be the shape of her head, or I can move things around if I need to and kind of hide it in the hair. So I don't mind using dark shapes over or dark lines over here. But notice how around the eyes, I'm not totally committed to that yet. So I'm not going to darken that. But I might move her iris or something like that. So already it's starting to look like a person, which is good, you know. And again, I just kind of drew this eyeballing it, measuring things based on other things. It works. It works as a method to measuring out a face. It's the method I want to do, just because I want to be eventually. I'm not anywhere near there. I want to be the type of person who paints, and like I want to be the type of person who can just sit down and paint something that they see without having to pull out a ruler or whatever. And maybe your goals are different. Maybe you're just starting out. Maybe you need a little more guidance on shapes and stuff like that. If that's your thing, hey, I am not judging you. It is hard to capture an image, so I am not going to criticize you too much. Sometimes when it's a really important picture, I use some of those methods. I use the grid system, where you kind of draw a grid, and you draw a grid on your reference art, and you translate little blocks from the reference art or the reference photo to the paper. Nothing wrong with that. I do that myself sometimes, especially when it's an important picture, like somebody paid me to do it, for example. I want to make sure I get it right. Or, and do what you got to do. I'm not going to beat you up for tracing an image, but you can also do that. You can use like transfer paper to transfer an image onto the paper so that it's not going to work with this method. This method almost requires you to do what I'm doing here. Like if I started with an under sketch or something like that, it's just not going to turn out as nice, I think. But this is kind of the method that I don't know, classical artists use. So that's what I want to learn. I didn't go to art school, but I want to I want to pretend like I did. This is the kind of stuff they'd probably teach you in art school. They probably teach you like a lot more, like how to actually measure things just by eyeballing it a little bit better, like lining it up with your pencil and so on. All right, so I'm pretty happy with the big shape. Let me put in some eyebrows real quick just so that I know where those are. So that's going to start here at the corner of the shadow that I put in. And the general shape is that it kind of comes up. I'm not all that great at drawing eyebrows. And it comes up and around. So at this point, it's just a shadow. And I'll come back and add some individual tiny hairs later on. But it's kind of like that. And then on this side, all right, so I can see because this one should start at the top of the eye. So let me put in a darker line just to kind of make sure I know that. So the problem is, see how this one's lower? If I hadn't caught that mistake, I need to bring that up a little bit more so that it lines up with this other one. And then this should be more of a rounded corner. All right, so that kind of like just changed the shape of her face a little bit, like almost imperceptibly, but it's important that this corner of the eyebrow matches up with this corner, so I moved it. All right, see how it works? Okay, so at this point, let me put in her nostril so I don't forget where that is. All girls have them. And that's just basically like a little kind of a horseshoe or whatever kind of coming down. Now this is all in shadow down through here, so I'll go ahead and put that in. And then this kind of comes up and around. This is all in shadow. And this is a really cool way of like, drawing some of these hard pieces that like people struggle with. People who draw lines, struggle with how to make the shape of a nose. People who draw shadows, it's less difficult to me because you're just kind of like putting in the shadows that you see. Oh, and I mentioned this tip before. Sometimes it helps to squint so that you can kind of see the contrast. Um, I learned a new trick recently that I recommend. I'm not doing it now, but I do actually recommend it to people who are curious about this way of drawing, where you're drawing like contrasts and trying to create depth. Is um, take the reference photo if you can, or if you're working with somebody who's actually there live in person, take a photo of them and then actually use a black and white filter on it. The black and white filter is going to cause all of these like colors to be shadows and highlights and stuff. And it's really cool. So like where I'm looking at the reference picture because it's in color and I'm squinting to kind of see where the shadows are, you wouldn't have to do that with the black and white photo because it's going to be more pronounced. And then what you're trying to get is the values of the shadows and highlights and stuff. And that's the actual term that you're shooting for. So the values are going to be your highlights, shadows, and midtones. And it's a lot easier to do with a black and white photo than it is with a color photo because color is kind of deceptive. Like here, this is a slightly different tone of color in her head. But if it was black and white, it would just be like grays, right? So like, especially if you're drawing in charcoal, which is going to be like a monotone picture anyway, it does kind of help to have that black and white reference if you can get it. You know, it's not always going to be available to you, but we all have phones. So just snap a picture of what you're trying to draw, put a black and white filter on it, and you're good to go. So all of this area through here. So again, remember this like kind of like charcoal dust that we used, that we fan brushed on, is going to be your midtone. So this through here is actually going to be shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and pencil that in. So I did line this up so I feel comfortable. I'm just going to put a darker mark here so I know where the edge of her lips are. I struggle with lips. I've noticed that recently. Like when I try to draw lips, they do not look as nice as I would like them to. That's something I'm working on. So people's mouths kind of, there's like this like mound structure here that the lips rest upon. Something to do with the shape of the skull, I guess, and the muscles underneath. But that would put shadows through here. And then you got some shadows kind of coming up into the face there. Now, you don't want to go crazy with this or else she'll end up looking like an old lady. You want to keep the keep it soft. Now, if you just wanted a rough picture, you could stop here and just be like, okay, I did a value study. That's what they call it. I did a value study on this girl, and this is what I came up with. But we actually want this to be a, somewhat finished charcoal picture, so we're going to do some more with it. We're going to blend things out so that things are nice and smooth. She does have an ear in here, so the ear is lined up with the mouth. So it's going to be right here. There's hair that comes over it. And then it kind of disappears up here. The other part of the ear kind of comes in from across from the nose. So don't let me forget that there's an ear over here because I'll have to finish that later. Kind of remind myself that it's there now. So there's going to be shadow down here. And the reason why I mentioned that ear is because her cheek kind of lines up with it. So like the bottom of the ear, the shadows of her cheek, or chin, or jowl, whatever you want to call it. Call it cheek. Kind of line up with that ear. All right. So I'm done making a mess. So now there's now we start moving into like kind of cleaning things up a little bit. So I've got a kneadable eraser here. I mentioned the wonders of these things before. These are great because everything's still light. I haven't made any dark marks yet. It's really easy to lift some things up. So I know that up here, so I like to make like, so you can knead these, obviously. You can form them into different shapes. what I like to do is kind of create like a little chisel out of it. And then I know that there's like highlight right above this eye. So I just kind of come in and I lift it up, right? I just lift that mid-tone that we fan brushed in up. I know that there's that light continues across her hair. So without getting into like too many details on her hair, I just lift some of that up. I know that at the corner of her eye, the cheek kind of comes out like that. And then it's kind of like triangle shape beneath that eye. You can make adjustments to this later, but I know that there's some highlight there. I know that beneath her eye on this side, the light kind of comes down as well. And the light follows the shape of her nose. Put a mark for that. And then some of this, I don't want to do too hard because like this isn't as bright as some of the other areas, but this kind of highlight just kind of extends across like that. I know, as I mentioned before, there's highlight on her upper eye. Like this is too triangle-y. At some point I'm going to have to soften that up. But you can do that. It works like a pencil, right? So like the lighter you do, the less is going to be lifted up. The harder you do, the more it's going to be lifted up. So across her mouth, and then at the corner of her nostril, or whatever you call that part. No, I don't think this part of the nose is called the nostril. I don't know, maybe it is. It's not the nostril hole. It's just the outside of it. So that comes up. Let's see. There's a little bit of a highlight across to define that nostril. So you can already see she's taking on like a three-dimensional shape. And I love this. I really do. It causes a lot of depth in your picture. So that was a little bit dark up there, so I'm going to remove some of that. It causes your picture to become 3D. And, you know, if you can get really good at drawing people, this is how you can kind of like reinforce that 3D in the people that you draw. I'm still working on getting proportions right, but I do like this method of creating depth in my pictures. So sometimes I might lift up too much. Like this right here, the shadow here is actually supposed to come down a lot further. So I just kind of come in, put it back in, you know. These tools are supposed to be, you know, used in conjunction with each other. Nothing is like meant to be used alone. So I am going to add some shadow to her lip here, her bottom lip. I'm going to bring that up. And the reason why is because there's some highlights on her bottom lip that I want to put in. It's not as dark as the upper lip. So right across the bottom of her upper lip, bottom lips. Sorry, I've been drinking. That's my go-to excuse whenever I screw up. I've been drinking. There's a highlight there, and then also in her lip, and this is where I kind of struggle. Sometimes it turns out all right, sometimes it doesn't. There's some highlights as well. So anyway, she's starting to look three-dimensional. I like it. Let's see, moving along to a lesser degree, and we just kind of work these shapes. You got basically three different shape areas that you're dealing with. I don't know what else to call them. You've got the shadows, midtones, and highlights. So we started out by putting in a ton of midtone, more than we need. Now, if you started with toned paper, that job's already done for you. And then, so things are a little bit different if you started with toned paper. So the midtone would be the tone of the paper itself. So whether it's gray, tan, blue, whatever you chose from the store, that's your midtone. You put in shadows with the charcoal, and then your highlights are actually, you take like a white charcoal pencil and you pencil these in. Because I started with white paper, the midtones are whatever I added to it. In this case, I added like some brushed on charcoal. The shadows, of course, are darker charcoal that I put in. And then the highlights are me erasing pieces of charcoal to expose the white that was underneath it. So slightly different if you have toned paper. I do like toned paper. I want to experiment with it more. It's just a little bit more expensive than white paper. And I'm happy with white paper. I like this method. So I don't want her face to be too smudgy. Now you can leave in some of this smudge that happened when you put in the brushed on charcoal, uh, because it kind of creates this stylistic effect. Um, you basically have two options as an artist. One is remove any evidence that you were there, right? So like create this hyper realistic picture that looks like a photo. You could do that if that's your style. Or and I don't know, like there's some history to this, but at some point artists um, stopped trying to hide, evidence that it isn't like an actual drawing, and they started leaving evidence of their work in there. And I think that's cool. I think that creates like a more stylized picture. So that's kind of what I shoot for now. But as you can see, I'm using the pencil, the eraser kind of as a pencil to add in some of these features that they kind of get lost in my initial rendering of the shadows. All right, so I'm happy enough with that. I'm going to continue adding more and just see how it goes. Oh, sorry. Her chin definitely has some highlights on it. She has a very lit up chin. All right, and then a little bit of lifting there. So some of this I might move around and stuff like that. It's a push-pull thing, All right. So the next thing I do, like you could continue with it just like this. Some people do. They leave in all the sketched marks and stuff like that. But at this point, I like to like blend some of this out, kind of make it smoother. And then as I'm blending, I might adjust those shadows a little bit. So like I might press down a little bit and create more shadow up here than as I go down, which I think is a kind of natural cheek curve. Now I kind of drew that too dark through there, so I'll have to make adjustments to it. But yeah, so this is I guess what, 1, 2, 3. This would be like step 4, I guess. Step 4 is blend out your shadows and midtones if you want to. Like you can leave them sketchy if you want. A lot of people do. People who are better at creating shadows, like they use the not better, just different, I guess. Like they use cross hatching or other familiar ways of creating shadow. They might leave those in there. That's totally their style. I like to blend these things out to create this kind of soft effect. Kind of, especially like if you're drawing a woman's face. Women's face are soft. Most of them. Like, I don't think that that's controversial to say. Um, so, give them soft features by blending out your shadows. So, don't mind me, just blending her cheek. Now, at the bottom of her cheek, so this is going to be a little bit darker than right below because there is something called reflective light. Somewhere down here, light is reflecting off of, I don't know, her shoulder, or if she has a light top on or something, it's reflecting off of that. But through here, it's actually lighter. So it still needs to be blended out, but not with such a heavy hand. Use a light touch to create that reflected light and then come back down and create this a little bit darker. So it doesn't really show up on camera, but this area here is actually lighter. And that's because, her skin is reflecting something off of her shoulder or her top or something like that. I have no idea. This is just a head. I don't I don't know what she's wearing. So I think her hair is going to come almost directly down. So let me go ahead and blend all this in. And then you can get nuts. You can blend your entire picture or something like that. But I'm not totally set in stone on any of these elements yet. So I'm just going to blend the parts that I need to be blended to kind of give me an idea of what to do next. You guys have been awfully quiet in the chat. You guys have any questions or anything as I'm going along? Did you guys fall asleep already? It's my job to put you guys to sleep. That's why I usually do these later. But it's daytime. You guys shouldn't be sleeping yet. So you kind of have to decide on your own, like your own particular composition, where you want to end the detail at, or the information. I've taken to calling it. So where you want to end the information and where you don't. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So I'm a big fan of leaving some parts unfinished, like down here. I don't know, I might do more with that, but I don't really want to super blend that because I like to draw. I like to direct people's eyes to different parts that I want them to look at by making those parts have a lot of detail and be more finished than others. So that's another piece of what I do. So like I try to. Oh, thanks, Vertigo. Well, at least you're paying attention. Cool. So I don't like how sharp this edge is up here, so I am going to work a little bit on lightening that up a bit. So I'm just lightly going over it with the eraser this time, just to kind of soften that a little bit. But anyway, so what I was saying is I do like to use detail and not detail to kind of direct people's eyes. So if I leave a part undetailed, it's because I want them to look somewhere else, right? So like I don't really want them focused on this ear. I have trouble drawing ears anyway, so I'm not going to put a ton of detail in the ear. But I do kind of want to capture those highlights that are there because the ears do reflect the light. I want to capture that. All right, so cool. All right, so I feel like there is more I can do. Every time I think I'm done, I catch something else. Grab some of that. Grab some of that lead off. This can kind of come up a little bit through here, and then you kind of capture that eye socket a little bit better by increasing the highlight. Cool, cool, cool. All right, and then so I do this a lot. I take my my little blending tool and I kind of wipe it off sometimes because I don't want to get a lot of charcoal on it. I want to use it to actually blend. Now, sometimes I like to draw with blending stumps. I'll put charcoal directly on it, and like that fan brush I was using, and actually draw with it. It creates this nice little soft features. But in this case, I just kind of want to take a lot of that charcoal off because I don't want this area to be too dark. It is a shadow, but it's not like crazy shadow through here. I think that's closer to being right. Okay. But I do want all this to be kind of smooth. Notice I've gotten in the habit of, especially, I need a really long blending stump. I don't even know if they sell this thing so that I can reach across the page like I've gotten in the habit with my pencils. So when you blend things out, you start losing some of the features that you had put in, and that's totally fine. You just got to remember to draw them back in. Like I lost that line above her eyelid that is there. I need to make sure that I remember to put that in. Sometimes I forget things. Like the worst thing ever is when I'm drawing a pet picture and I forget to put in things like whiskers or I think I even left an ear off by accident. These things happen, like I recommend doing like a once over of your picture before you call it done. So she's actually got some shadow over her nose bridge, just a little bit. A little bit there as well. This is way too dark through here, so I need to either blend that out, or this should be darker, so I use some of the charcoal that is still on my thing to create like a soft line. That kind of comes up there. This kind of comes down. And then it becomes really dark through here. It kind of comes back up. And then this part through here is like more rounded than what I have here, but it is dark as well. See? And then you're basically drawing shadows, you know? Shadows and highlights. You're not drawing lines, which is the important thing that you need to realize, and one of the things that are easy to forget. You are not drawing lines, you are drawing shadows and highlights in this particular method. So I kind of want to lift, I don't want to scrape it because I don't want to leave lines, but I do just kind of want to lift some of that charcoal up there because that one was too dark. Yeah, see how that works? All right, now because she has a tone I put across the bridge of her nose, now I can add highlights to her nose, which is a cool little effect. Makes girls look pretty to have a little highlight there. And then a little faint line coming down like that. So I like that. I think that's cool. All right, and then that. So some of this stuff got put in here when I was working on the shape of her nose, but now I get to lift it up and define that nose a little bit. Now she's got a nose. So I can see that this line here is way too pronounced. It's the right tone, but it's meant to be a soft line. So I just kind of pull that out a little bit so that it's a little bit softer. All right, so not intentionally, but she's starting to look a little bit like Angelina Jolie, I think. I think it's because I made her cheeks a little bit gaunt, but that's okay. I'll go with it. Happy accident. All right, let me smooth all this out because this is not meant to be too sketchy through here. And, you know, I'm using a blending stump, but some of these things you can use your finger or whatever. I know I like to use my fingers when I'm working in pastel. This is very similar to pastel. It's a dry medium. You can just smudge it with your hand if you want. But it's kind of like push and pull. You know, you put down charcoal and then you lift it up and so on. All right. So, yeah, I mean, her face is basically there. Let me work on her eye a little bit since we feel more comfortable. Like, I feel comfortable where her eye is. I think that she looks natural. It doesn't look weird. I don't feel like I'm going to move it. So I'm stressing all that. I already felt that way, but I'm stressing all that because now I feel comfortable, and I don't always feel comfortable, but I feel more comfortable adding some detail to her eye because I know it's not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to suddenly realize like, oh crap, I put the eye in the wrong spot. So she is looking up, so I want to draw her pupil looking up. She has light eyes, so when dealing with light eyes, you do want to make sure there's some tone in there that you blend out. I think her eyes are blue, but same thing with green eyes. It doesn't matter when you're dealing with black and white, but it's just basically light, dark, and medium eyes. But when dealing with light eyes, you just kind of draw the shadow that kind of comes around the iris. And you draw the pupil sometimes. You don't always draw the pupil. Because sometimes the pupil is hidden behind a highlight. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and draw the pupil. And the reason why I'm taking so long here is because I don't know where it's kind of dark in here. I really need better lighting. It's hard to tell where the edge of my pencil is. So I can see where my pencil is, right? But my pencil, because I sharpened it on sandpaper, it's got an edge to it. And then also as I draw with it, it forms an edge. So I don't really know. Oh, hey kid, how's it going, man? Or woman? I don't know which one you are. But how's it going? Yeah, we were talking about the Flash movie that's coming out soon. Thank you for saying that the pick is looking good as well. Oh, what I was saying is I don't know where the edge is on my pencil. I kind of have to guess. So I'll put my pencil down, make a mark, see if it's doing what I want, and if it doesn't, I'll pick it up and move it. So she's got eyelashes coming off. So you gotta kind of have to pay attention to the. Sorry, I'm yelling into the mic. You have to pay attention to the direction of the eyelashes. Sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. In this case, they're kind of coming down a little bit. And they do extend all the way to the corner. Got to make sure that. So some people, some women, they have eyelashes that they paint on, like as part of their makeup. You have to kind of pay attention to whether it's makeup or true eyelashes, or like if they're fake eyelashes. Most women who, not most women, I don't really know. I don't know all women. It's hard to make generalities. But women who don't use like fake eyelashes and stuff like that, they tend to be shorter, I think. So just don't 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 just draw eyelashes like you think they should be. You know, kind of look at your reference art, look at the person sitting in front of you, and kind of see how their eyelashes work, because they're going to be different. There are some certain generalities that you can make, but double check because they might be different. So obviously, an eye is not just an almond or like a circle or something like that. The inside eyeball is actually round, and that affects the shadows. So you're always going to have, well, not always, but most times you're going to have shadows in the corner of the eyes because the eye itself is round. Um, so you got to make sure that you draw those in. So I'm going to come in with the blending tool and blend some of this out. Now, notice I didn't lift my midtones. All right, my midtones are still there that I put on with the fan brush earlier. I leave those in there because eyes generally, especially when the light source is up here, aren't typically white. They're parts of them are, and I'll come back with an eraser and define those here in a minute. But you don't just assume that the eyeball is going to be white. That the pupil is going to be black. That these are things that hold true in many cases, but other cases do not, especially when the light moves and so on. And those are the type of pictures I like to draw. I like to draw these high contrast pictures where the shadows are going to affect the eyeballs. Like this one, you're not even going to be able to see any information in it because that's all in shadow. So there's no information that your eye will capture. So there is like this line above the eye, but it's not like a line. It's kind of blended out because it's a soft line. And then also, uh, obviously, this is where many women use eyeliner and eyeshadow and stuff like that. So you have to pay attention to all of that. Like this girl, I don't think is wearing a ton of makeup, or if she is, it's very natural makeup. So there's no weird colors going on or weird. Um, like I said, some girls they paint the corners of their eyes now, like kind of Cleopatra or whatever. That's just their style. There's none of that artificial stuff going on here. I don't know when that became popular, but I see a lot of girls doing that now, and it looks cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's not natural. So if you're drawing a more natural girl, that's not going to have that. Or if you're drawing one of them, you need to make sure that you put that in because that's their style, and you want to capture their likeness. You don't want to just draw what you know. You want to draw what you see in front of you. And if the girl's got Cleopatra eyes, you got to make sure you put in Cleopatra eyes. I don't even know if that's what it's called. Sometimes I fell out of touch with what kids are doing these days. So there are, this is kind of like, I want to soften this up a little bit, pull some of that shadow out, maybe put it back in a different way. And I don't feel like I'm done yet. Somehow she got way too much shadow underneath her eyes. All like that better. Let me put it back in and blend it out. Yeah, so I like the black paper drawings too. I want to do more of them, but I haven't. Short of doing like really high contrast pictures where you're only seeing like the edge of something, I haven't. To be honest with you, I'm not totally happy with how the color is working. So I need to practice with that. So like I did a dog picture yesterday. I think it was yesterday that had some color in it. I don't feel like the color came through as bright and vibrant as what I had in mind. So I'm going to work with that. It's not terrible. I still like that style, but yeah, I'm going to work with it and see what I like most about the black paper. But no, it's a lot of fun drawing on black paper. It's fun drawing in reverse, which is kind of cool. When you're drawing on black paper, you're drawing all the highlights, not the shadows. When you're drawing in black, obviously you're working on shadows. Yeah, that's true. Give me a minute. During the spring, my nose runs a lot. Allergies. All right, so let me put this back in. How are we doing on time? All right, so I feel like we're doing pretty good on time, but I do kind of want to move on from some of those features. So let's go to the lips because I feel like those eyes are pretty good. So I do have this like this white pastel. I'm gonna add, even though I drew a space for it, I'm gonna kind of reinforce that with this white pastel. And that really makes the eyes pop, in my opinion. I think it looks cool. Um, so I'm gonna kind of work on these lips here because I suck at lips. So there is a small part in her lips here in the front. So that's going to create some shadow. This comes up. That's some shadow. I only really care about the shadow parts at this moment. And sometimes I like to leave the lips kind of rough instead of like over blending them. Just because there is structure in your lips, like there's lines and so on. Um, so she does have a small part there. Like you're not going to see it in the pencil drawing, but I can, if I squint really hard, I can see like a tooth. I'm not going to draw that, but I'm going to draw her lips more closed than the actual reference picture. But, pay attention to that kind of stuff. Like if you're working on a picture from reference art, see if you can see a tooth. if there's a tooth, that might be information you want to convey, or not. It's up to you. You're the artist. In this case, I'm going to skip drawing the tooth just because I know I will botch it. And otherwise, these lips actually look pretty decent. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to define this Cupid bow a little bit more just because there is some shadow on it and I want it to look like a Cupid's bow. I actually like these lips. Like these lips are probably some of the best lips that I've drawn in a long time. So I'm proud of them. So at this point, I'm going to move away from them because I don't want to screw them up. And uh, what that is what artists call overworking it. I don't want to overwork these lips because I am pretty happy with them. All right, so I'm just reinforcing the shadow beneath it so that I can kind of define this line a little bit so that when I come back and do hair, I know where hair is. So remember, I started with this line for her neck. I decided to move it back. I'm going to reinforce that now by having the shadow come all the way back here and have it cut off right there. So it's just moving things around. And then I am going to kind of blend it so that I create kind of like a soft edge up against her chin. And, it'll probably become less soft as I do her hair later on. But right now I want her to have kind of like a smooth shape to this profile. Dark underneath the So the other thing is when you're drawing these lines and even using your blending tool, you might want to pay attention to how the hair is actually going because the hair kind of swoops down. So notice how I started by drawing like that. That's incorrect. I should really be following the hairline because it's going to, because try as you might to make it smooth, it's still coming off with like some lines and stuff in it. And you can use that to your advantage and call it texture, but not if the lines are going in the wrong direction. Now, she does have some bit of eyeball on her left side, which I have to draw in because right now it looks like somebody plucked her eyeball out. That's not good. Gotta reach around to get this one. So just to kind of recap what I've been doing, again, I start with a tone of some sort. In this case, I used a fan brush to brush on some charcoal. That's where all these like little lines come from. I use that as the mid-tone for the picture. I come in, I draw the big shapes first. So this is the secret. You draw the big shapes first, which in this case was her head, the like this basic line for her hair and her neck. That's the big shapes, right? And then you move into the smaller shapes. In this case, it was the definition of the contour of her face. And then from that contour, I kind of measured out, well, where would the lips be? Where would the eyes be? Where would the nose be? And stuff like that. And then it's a matter of, oh, and then the next step was to, I'm making these steps as I go along, but I should really write these down because these are pretty good. Um, then the next step was to come in, use the eraser to create highlights. After, no, wait. The next step was to come in and use a pencil to add more charcoal for the shadow areas. Then come in with an eraser, capture the highlights if you can, or as much as you can, and then the next step is to kind of blend out some of these shadows and stuff. So that's the steps we've been doing so far. And as you can see, it creates a realistic picture. So I've been working with this medium, really hard charcoal, which creates like lighter effects. Now I'm going to switch to the softer charcoal because the softer charcoal really gives you darker lines. So I'm going to come back and reinforce some of these lines that I've already drawn. Kind of darken them up. A little circle around her eye. You're going to be careful so that I don't screw things up. Give her a football, for example, as an eyeball. Don't want to do that. Yeah, so as you can see, I don't know, maybe you guys can't see, but it created kind of darker lines there, which is good. And the reason why I switched to that is because there are some darker lines in this already dark eyebrow. And here I just want to kind of use these like really thin, like just kind of, just scraping to make a mark lines across the shadow that I had already defined in her eyebrow, just to kind of give the appearance of hairs. You're not going to draw every individual hair, just like you wouldn't draw every individual hair on the top of her head. You just kind of want it, and it's like the eyelashes. You just do these like quick little gestures. And I'm not perfect at drawing eyebrows. I always kind of, like if I was drawing this portrait of a woman who was sitting here in front of me, she'd probably be complaining that I screwed up her eyebrows because she spent so much time defining them herself. Um, but it's something I'll work on. But I feel good about the actual method or technique there. It's just never seemed to pull it off. But yeah, you do put in like some shadow and then just come in and add kind of an appearance of hairs in there. So at this point, I'm going to switch back to my lighter pencil because I'm not really sure what this eye over here will look like. I know that it has to be lined up with this one. And really, I think it's just eyelashes. So I'm going to pull that across. This one down here is kind of caught in shadow. There's no eyeball. I think that's basically all you're going to get on that left eye. So let me blend some of that in. And I do want this to kind of be dark and kind of lose that information as a way of justifying that there's not much information there. Because there really isn't. There's not even information in the reference photo. There's literally nothing to draw except an eyelash. Eyelashes coming off of that. So let me switch to my thing, and then kind of. So and the only reason why there's eyelashes there is because they extend out, so they kind of actually change the shape of the contour here. And then this is all dark through here, so let me go ahead and shade that in. And then that's it. That's all you get for a left eye. Sorry. I'm not apologizing because I screwed it up. I'm saying sorry because that's actually what it's supposed to look like, more or less. Because like all of this is just shadow. That's what you get in these high contrast pictures that I like to draw. All right. So now I feel like we've got the likeness of her pretty much to where I feel like comfortable moving on to working on the hair and then coming back and seeing if there's any last minute touches or further details that I can put in. So this hair kind of swoops down. I really do like working on hair. Sometimes I screw it up, but there's like a lot of movement in hair. Doesn't really matter, like unless it's like black hair, like raven black hair, and then it's really just highlights that you're capturing. But her hair is kind of like, I don't know, like an auburn color. I'm not very good with these things, so there is a lot to work with here. And then blonde hair, same thing, lots to work with because blonde hair is never really blonde unless you're like platinum blonde or something like that. But it's usually got a little bit of brown mixed in, especially in the shadow areas. So I don't want a hard line here. I kind of want to shadow this so that it's kind of got like a soft line on her neck. I like drawing pictures when I'm doing portraits. I don't want it to just be a floating head. I actually want part of definitely the neck. The long neck is great. If you can't get that, maybe the top of her shoulders or something like that. I don't want it to just be a floating head. I want some of that body shape because I think it just looks better. Um, like yeah, I prefer that over I don't know, like a girl that's wearing like a collared top or something like that. Even though that's fine too. I just want there to be something going on so that it's not just a head. Because then that's weird, just a floating head. But like if you're a first time artist and you're just getting used to it, sometimes that's what you end up drawing. You just draw like an oval and you add eyes to it. And that's not reality. Eventually you'll get bored with that and you'll want to move on to doing something a little bit more interesting. Like I really like her long neck. If I had more paper, I would probably draw her shoulders as well. I want to make sure I'm using my medium one because I don't really know where these lines are going to go. This should kind of swirl about here. The weird thing about hair is it kind of just starts and stops in weird places. So like this actually comes out here. Like the tendency is to draw it just straight down, but that's not how hair works. Even if like the hair is mostly straight, there's going to be some waves in it. Like if she purposefully styled her hair to be straight, you got to roll with it. You got to make sure that you capture that because you want to make sure that it's a picture of her and not just what you have in your mind. but most cases there's going to be some waves in the hair. It's not going to be like fully curly or anything like that, but it's going to have some waves, and then the waves are going to start and stop in weird places. Like this side here just kind of starts and stops there because this straight part comes across, and then this part kind of comes down off the chin and starts a new wave. Um, and this is fun, like drawing in these shapes in the hair, but also you can screw it up really easily and make it look unnatural. And it's always a little bit stressful drawing hair, but it's also a lot of fun because nowhere else is there so much shadows and highlights, than in the hair. There's all there's always and again, like I said, unless it's like straight black hair, you're gonna have some highlights and shadows. And this kind of curls up as well. So when things curl up, you've got usually, and you have to make sure you keep looking at your reference art, you usually have some shadows at either end, and then in between there's some like more highlighted areas. And then the outside here, let's see, and it comes down in waves. Like right around where the, I kind of want to tinker with this eye a little bit. Kind of add a little bit more so that it doesn't look like a closed eye. Anyway, um, so over here it kind of waves off. So again, I try to like I try to remember to do the left side before I do the right side so that I kind of can rest my hand on something, but I don't always do that. Sometimes you'll see that I've got all of this done and then I have to reach all the way across the page to do these bits over here. So a lot of times I just kind of like scribble in lines, but here I'm trying to create soft lines because it is really a soft picture. It comes down, curves around, and then kind of straightens out down here. Just kind of like a waterfall. And if I can get all the shadows and midtones in, then I might come back and add, some more detailed lines and stuff like that. All right, so this part, at some point, I'm going to say some point right here-ish. Yeah, I kind of wanted this to curl up, so let me adjust them. So somewhere around here, it gets really dark and a lot more shadow. So just kind of be mindful of that as I'm going along. So this is all shadow. I've got to be careful through here not to mess up my contour. But anywhere where there's large blocks of shadow or large blocks of highlight, you get a pass. You don't really have to draw anything, which is great. But then when it comes out of the shadow, you got more information you got to draw. And then, it's kind of artistic discretion on where you want to end these lines. Kind of try to find a natural place. Like I might just kind of leave these light down through here, give the impression that they come down into like curls. What's today? Wednesday? Yeah. I know I said it at the start of the show, but I was thinking for some reason it was Thursday. All right, so I think that's good enough to leave that for a minute. We'll come back to it. I want to move up here. So this kind of comes up and around out there. And then this is going to be dark through here, but then kind of get up. And then up here, because like I've got an edge to the page, I kind of want to fade it out, right? So like, obviously, excuse me a moment. Sorry. Obviously, the hair continues up past the edge of the page. Um, but since I'm not going to draw that, obviously I would be drawing off the page. I just kind of want to fade it out a little bit and pretend like there's more highlight up here than there actually is, especially on this side. On this side, there's a little bit of highlight along the um, part, but then that's about it. So I'll put that in. So this is looking cool. Like honestly, this is turning out way better than some of my other portraits that I've been doing. So pretty happy with it. I could probably blend some of this stuff so that it doesn't look so rough, but I'm not going to. So up here, now there's usually not like a solid line. There's stray hairs that kind of come off, especially at the part. And then, you know, like honestly, there's like little wisps that happen all over the place in the hair, no matter how much they brush. There's going to be like errant hairs. It's kind of coming off. It's fun to draw those. It kind of adds this like layer of realism. You don't have to get crazy with it. Just kind of draw really light lines to draw wispy hair. You can't even see it on the screen anyway, so I'll just skip all that. But anyway, same bit up here. No matter how well you brush your hair, there's going to be like little errant hairs coming off. And then it kind of does get shadowy at the part. So that's just a shadow. I'm drawing lines, but they're soft lines, and you know, I'm varying the pressure that I'm putting on the pencil just so that it comes out darker in some areas than others. And then remember, I lifted some of the midtone off up here, so that kind of represents our highlight. So I just kind of have to pull these lines into the highlight, but not draw in the highlight itself because that's capturing the light. And then same deal on this side, kind of pull lines up into the highlight, but not draw over the highlight. Let's see. Yeah. I think our highlight's actually wider. So there's more lines through here. And I think that this should come all the way out here. So that's another line that I messed up. So like I put the end of her hair there, but really the width of her hair, you know, just eyeballing it is about the same distance as the head itself on from this perspective. So I really need to bring that all the way back here because that'd be more realistic. So these are like little adjustments that you get to make as you go along. All right, so at this point, it starts getting into dark areas. So I need to um, switch to a different pencil here in a moment, but or even my big charcoal block, which I think is what I'll do. Just want to put in the shadows inside of her ear and kind of define this stuff so that I don't have to go over that part. And then this part is all underneath. She does have this piece of hair going over her ear, which is kind of cool. Women always have to pull their hair back over their ear. Not always, that's just something they do. So this is going to be darker, and then this, she does kind of have a little So nothing's ever like just a bowl shape, right? So there's going to be like little wispy hair coming off here. So it really depends. Great question, Vertigo. I draw whatever I see that looks cool. So I like her pose. I like that her head is tilted and that she's looking up. So to me, it doesn't really matter if this is in color or not. But when I go looking for a reference photo, I do look for a high contrast photo. So it doesn't matter to me if it's in color or if it's in black and white. In my head, I'm translating it to black and white anyway. But a high contrast photo is going to give me like really dramatic lighting, right? So like there's going to be a lot of highlight in it, a lot of shadows. It doesn't matter to me if it's black and white. Now, that said, it is easier if it's in black and white because then those values are already there. Like I mentioned earlier, this area here in the reference photo is just kind of like this kind of pinkish brown area, right? It's not dark like this area. Okay. So in fact, I can add a little bit more value through here. Sorry, kind of off on a tangent. Um, so this isn't going to be as the same color as this area here, right? Yeah, a little bit here, just soften that up. Sorry, I'm glad you brought my attention to these things. Um, but in a black and white photo, all of that's going to be mapped out for you. So you don't really have to do that kind of mental translation that I'm doing as I'm going along. Um, so yeah, I mean, it does help if it's in black and white. Sure, if you're a new artist just getting started and you want to try doing high contrast pictures in charcoal, I do recommend, yeah, start with some black and white photos because they're going to do a lot of that value adjustment for you. Um, you know, especially when you're starting out, any little bit helps. Um, but in the real world, if you go and meet somebody at a bar and you want to draw their picture or something, or if you're out on the street and you're like, hey, I'm drawing pictures and, would you like one? Um, they're not going to be in black and white. So I'm trying to develop good habits uh, as well as like cheat codes. So like the cheat codes is I could have just traced this picture. I could have opened it up in Photoshop, done the black and white translation. I could have done a number of things that I probably would do if I got like a commission work just so that I can really nail it. Um, but I'm also trying to get good at doing these things without doing all of those little cheat codes and stuff. They're not really cheat codes. A lot of artists do this stuff. Even like professional portrait artists. I was watching this. What was this show? Uh, hey, thank you. I appreciate that, Rock. Carl Rock. Um, I was watching this British show where they were doing portraits as a competition. I forget the name of it, but it's on YouTube. It's definitely cool to check out. These are paintings that they were doing. It was like National Portrait Artist or something. But anyway, it was a British show. But they were like, they give you like 4 hours to paint somebody's portrait, and there's a whole competition. They choose which one's the best one, and then like the prize is that you get to hang a portrait. Well, you get a $10,000 commission to do a portrait, and then it gets hung in the National Museum of Art or whatever. I don't know what British people do or where they like what their museums are called. But anyway, so all that stuff sounds great. So you go to watch these people actually doing their work, and guess what? They're going up to the person that they're drawing a picture of. They're standing in front of the person drawing a picture, and they'll go up to the person with their phone and take a picture of it, and then come back to their workstation and do things like the grid method or something like that. Now, not all of them do, but it is a common practice for people to do these little things that maybe classical artists, obviously Da Vinci didn't have a cell phone in his pocket that he could just go up and take a picture of the Mona Lisa. Um, so I don't know. I try to, this is literally traditional art, traditional fine arts. Uh, I could do these things, but also I'm trying to be a traditional artist. Some of it's like a little bit of a protest against computer tools. You know, I work with those obviously in my day job. Most people do. I like pen and paper. I like looking at something and eyeballing it. It doesn't always work out well. I think it's working out well here. I'm happy with this picture. Doesn't always do that for me. Um, but it's definitely where I want to be, you know, and I at least want those skills. So because like all of this is like actually dark through here, I'm going to come in and kind of like make quick work of it with this charcoal stick instead of the fine lines that I've been doing. And I might like leave this part a little bit unfinished because it does kind of fade off on the side. So I don't mind leaving that to the viewer's imagination of like where her hair goes from here. Um, Maybe not. It would stop around here. So let me put that line in. It's going to come back here. Off her neck here. All right, so I am going to put in that little tight bit, but here I'm just going to leave it be. So I got all this, and I'm using the medium stick so that it doesn't get too pleasant. I stand corrected. You're right. If I was drawing in Pleasantville, I would have black and white people to draw from. It's a good point. It's not a good point. Why? Don't patronize him. It is a point that you made. Good job, Vertigo. All right, so you know I can throw in like a lot of shadow really quick, but of course that looks weird if I just leave it like that. So I have to kind of blend it in to the other stuff. So I have switched to a soft charcoal because I feel like at this point I can add some more detail. So again, I just kind of want this hair coming off similar to like down here. Now, obviously, as a viewer, you're not going to think that her hair actually stops there, just like you're not going to think that her neck stops here. Um, you are going to use your imagination and fill in the blanks, I hope. So I kind of want this bit here to kind of curl back around. It's hard to see in the original picture because all of this is like in shadow. I want to reinforce the ear. I'm not worried about detail here because again, I really want you to look at the eyes, you know, because that's like the focal point in a portrait. So I'm not worried about too much detail in these shadow areas. It's kind of trying to make it look natural. Now her hair is less wavy over here because it's actually pulled back. Her hair is pulled back and around and drapes off this side. So over here you're going to have a lot straighter lines. This is more shadow. Now, sometimes I blend hair if I want it to look soft, but I don't think I'm gonna do that here. Kind of like the texture. Notice how at the ends I'm adding more lines, um, kind of thickening it up a little bit on the shadows because that's kind of like where things happen. It is pulled behind the ear, so I kind of want to bring these lines this way a bit. Anyway, I'm happy enough with that. It does look kind of rough, but you know, we've been at this for like an hour and a half and it's just like a demo anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'm going to move back over here and kind of work some of these shadows a little bit. I don't want to overwork the hair. Even though she is auburn haired, I kind of want to let people imagine whether or not she's blonde or auburn or obviously not black haired. But I don't really want the hair to be the focal point anyway. I do kind of want to blend some of that, and I don't like that. It looks so rough. Just kind of smooth some of that out a little bit. And for that, I switched to the thicker stump, or bigger stump, so that I can do like large areas of it at once. I don't want this to look so grainy. That's the texture of the paper, by the way, and probably my wood underneath, although this is pretty smooth. It kind of comes through, and I like to blend the ends of things, but kind of leave the other parts too. I want to leave a little bit of texture in there so that it does look drawn, but I felt like that was a little bit rough. Yeah, to me that looks better. And then same thing in here, because like you gotta put yourself in the viewpoint of a camera or something. Camera is gonna blend some of this stuff out. There's no non-focal point, it's gonna be blurry. So why shouldn't we be like a camera? This is all dark through here, so let me really blend that in a little bit better. I at least want it blended around her face. And that's where I want it to be soft. Like a real person's face. But also I don't want to get carried away. And then you can use some of the same techniques that we used on her face in the hair. So like if you want to form your, and I'll do a demonstration of that here in a second, but well, I'll do it now. Get some of this other stuff going here. So like if I wanted to, you know, form the edge into like a really fine tip and then come in and just kind of put in a highlighted piece of hair here or extend that highlight up. I can see. I mean, well, it's hard to see on camera, but just kind of erase some lines and make it, you know, highlights in the hair. And I can do the same over here because like not everything's in shadow. You can bring some of those highlights down a bit. And it also does kind of help blend the charcoal when you rub a, like you don't have to put a lot of pressure on it. It can kind of like smudge or blend out some of the charcoal. Gives it like a little less grainy feel. All right, I think we're getting close to the end of this without like overworking it. Every time I say that, I want to add more, so I'm going to continue doing that, but we are getting close to the end. I appreciate you guys coming in and watching this with me. I'm trying to get in the habit of asking people to like and subscribe. It's not really in my nature, so if you guys are new to this channel, I don't know how you found me, but I do appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with me, and I encourage you guys to like and subscribe because I plan on doing more of these live streams in the future. I also hope, as my schedule allows, to put out more. Like I've been putting out a lot of shorts just because they're quick and easy, and I enjoy doing them. But you know, I plan on doing more tutorials like this in the future where I'm explaining what I'm doing. A lot of the standalone videos I put out that are longer than shorts are just kind of like background music, and it's kind of cool. I like those because you can kind of listen to them while you're doing other things and just kind of look up every now and then and see what progress I made. So like while you're working or you know studying or something like that, feel free to check out some of those videos because it does have some nice ambient, relaxing music that you can chill to while you're doing other things, and then just kind of look up every now and then and say, "Oh, okay, I can see the progress there." Um, but yeah, so I do plan on doing more actual instructional videos just because I enjoy doing these things, and you know, if I'm doing it live, might as well talk about what I'm doing. So I did kind of darken up her hair, but I like these like little waves I'm putting in. They're kind of cool. Also on my my main channel page, I added a link tree um, where you can find other places I'm at. I'm also on TikTok. That's just my shorts. So if you're here, you're probably seeing the same things over there. Um, let's see. I have an Instagram, same deal. Uh, put up a donate button if you guys want to send me art supplies. Uh, don't feel like you have to. I just put that up because everybody else had one. But honestly, if you guys come in and hang out with me, and I'll be back on Friday, I think. You guys do that. That's a great way to support the channel. Just hang out with me. Just talk to me. It's, you know, tell me if I'm doing good or bad. You know what? If you guys have any comments, feel free to drop those in the comment box. If you guys have suggestions on things that you would like to see me draw. Lately, I've been drawing animals just because I want to get good at drawing animals, maybe do some pet commissions. I've had some friends who's had animals pass away, and it brings me a lot of joy to draw their pet for them. Is like a way for them to get through the grieving process. It's tough losing a pet, so anything like that can help, and I really enjoy doing that for them. So I just want to get better at that. So I've been practicing a lot, but I do like drawing portraits, as you can see. Um, Trying to get better at those too. And then I'm trying to think what else I enjoy drawing. I don't know. If there's something I want to draw, I guess I'll just draw it. But hey, Huli, how's it going? Hey, if you guys want to lurk too, that's fine. You know, as you can see, I'm usually just talking to myself, explaining what I'm doing anyway. So if you guys just want to watch and, you know, honestly, I think that people would I don't really know what you guys do, right? Like I'm not you, so I don't know how you guys enjoy this channel. But what I imagine, because I enjoy this in other people's shows, is you know, it's kind of relaxing, especially when you have some music playing or something like that. It's kind of relaxing just to watch people draw, and it's not like you have to talk to me if you don't want to. Um, I encourage you to watch this while doing other things. Um, you know, I'm a programmer as well, and a lot of times I just put on somebody's channel and kind of put it on as background noise while I'm doing other things. And if that's what you do, I appreciate it because that is fun too. But you know, if you do enjoy what you're seeing and want to drop a comment in, feel free to. Um, Either in the chat or in the comments afterwards. I do read every one of them, and I'm trying really hard to respond to every one of them, even if I'm just saying thanks. But I feel like I'm being repetitive when I just say thanks. But I'm committed to continuing doing that. So um, if there's something you don't like, let me know. But yeah, so like if you guys have something that you want me to take a shot at, you let me know. Because sometimes I do things like that, challenges, or because I don't know what you guys want. I draw what I want to draw, but if you guys have some preferences. I think the only thing I won't draw, even though I enjoy drawing like female portraits, I probably won't do any nudes. So don't ask because like there are some kids who watch this show, and I want to be mindful of that. But short of that, short of something weird, well, actually, so some weird is okay. Like if you want me to draw an alien, I will draw an alien. You guys just let me know. It's up to you guys. All right, so there's some texture up here in the forehead. I'm going to leave that because I think it's kind of cool. I feel like this part over here, yeah. Since I did all that dark area, I think I'll. How are we doing on time? Oh, okay, we got a little bit of time here. I'm not trying to get to 2 hours, but I don't want to go over 2 hours because I want to be respectful of people's time. I feel like 2 hours is a good length for an art show, at most. There's what picture did I do? Oh, um, we were talking about the black paper earlier. So that dog I did, the first dog I did on black paper, the black lab, that only took me like 20 minutes because most of it's just highlights and it's like not a lot of area that I'm covering. He's like caught by the moonlight or something like that. There's not like a lot to it. So that only took me 20 to 30 minutes. So they don't always take 2 hours. I feel like this one wouldn't have taken 2 hours, except that I'm spending time explaining what I'm doing, which is fun. There you guys. What do you guys think? I think it's done. I could maybe smooth out some of this. I don't really want to screw it up. It's always like the last moments I screw things up. Just gonna smooth some of that out. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. Oh, yeah. I don't know. People like drawing, watching art. I'm surprised. Um, I've been most of those are in short views. My long form stuff, people watch it sometimes, but it doesn't have half the traffic that my shorts get. Um, the shorts are kind of cool. Like they bring in subscribers pretty well. Like honestly, I'm surprised. Like I had that other channel and nobody like people watched it, but it did not get as many subscribers as doing art does. Like who knew people like art? But yeah, I only started this in January. I'm up to, unless you guys unsubscribe today, don't please. I'm up to like 300 something, which is, an average of like 100 per month. That's pretty cool. Considering I do zero promotion, I just draw. But I don't know. I don't feel like if I talk about subscribers, everybody will unsubscribe. So I don't want to jinx it. But it's kind of fun. I don't do it for the viewers per se. I do it because I want to learn. But it's nice that you guys are there too. I appreciate that. You guys motivate me. Like I could easily see myself not drawing one day if nobody was watching. Like if part of this whole process. So like if you guys have been around since January, I've mentioned this before. I'm just gonna leave that sitting there while I have my bourbon and pontificate. Um, if you guys have been around since January, I mentioned this before, but art, doing this, having a YouTube show is a great way to hold yourself account to like set goals and hold yourself accountable. So I think it was Vertigo mentioned earlier today that like I'm nailing it on this New Year's resolution of mine, which is to be creative and do art every day. Or not even every day. I don't think I set that as my goal. I think my goal was just to be more creative this year. Um, and he's right, I am nailing it, but I owe it all to you guys because the process is actually you set yourself some goals. And I've done this in other areas of my life. It's just, when it comes to art, it's nice to have viewers to do this, but you set yourself some goals, you hold yourself accountable, but then also you find others to hold you accountable. Like if nobody told me to mow the lawn, I know my personality is I wouldn't mow the lawn. It helps when somebody nags you and tells you like, oh, that lawn's getting pretty high, right? Um, you're gonna mow it today? Oh, okay, I guess I'll do it because you asked. But left to my own devices, I'm not gonna do it. Um, so the whole having others hold you accountable to things, it really, really helps when doing goal setting and self improvement. So that's really where I appreciate you guys the most because like if you guys weren't watching, I know if nobody's watching, I'm probably going to take a day off and just not do anything. I'm not, I feel pretty creative. I enjoy doing this, but I know myself. I know that if nobody's holding me accountable, nobody's watching, left to my own devices, I'm pretty lazy. And yet this is a pretty important goal to me. So I appreciate you guys, if that makes sense. So you guys are doing me a solid by watching. You guys don't even have to yell at me and say, Jeremy, you're not great in art today. Um, just knowing you guys are there and stuff. And like, honestly, like theoretically, you guys could give a shit less if I just disappeared one day. But in my mind, I'd be letting you guys down if I didn't come in and do these live streams and post those shorts and stuff. So I do appreciate it, guys. All right, so I think I'm done tinkering with this. I do feel like maybe this could come in a little bit more. I feel like, yeah, I want it to be. Just leave it like that. I don't know if that's correct, but I'll just leave it like that. I don't want to screw it up. All right, so I am going to call this done. Again, I appreciate you guys being here. I think this one turned out pretty good. I'll post it up for people to see, like probably later on tonight. So I do post some of my stuff that I like to my community tab. Let me go to me. There you go. All right. So I do post some of the stuff that I do that, like, usually if I don't like it, I probably won't post it, or if I forget about it, I won't post it. But I like this one, so I think I will post it. The places to check that out, again, I think I have my Twitter in my link tree, my Instagram in my link tree. But if not, there's a community tab here on YouTube. If you subscribe and have the little bell notified, you should get like a notification when I post that up. But oh, it's okay. You go back and watch it later because I can. I'm just kind of going over my process for creating charcoal pictures in this, particularly charcoal portraits. How to let's go back to the picture real quick. So the process that I described in this, if you want to go back and rewatch it, is how to create like depth in your charcoal picture, how to capture that realism, and to a lesser degree, how to like actually lay it out without doing, measurements and so on beforehand. If you go back to the beginning, you'll see that I kind of started with just a blank piece of paper, drew, the bigger shapes, kind of moved into the smaller shapes, added some shadow, lifted some of the well, actually I started with a toned piece of paper that I explained in the beginning of how to tone your paper so that you can have those midtones already in there, and then how to add the shadow, how to lift some of that up, that midtone and shadow up to create highlights. If you were starting with toned paper, it wouldn't matter so much. You would already have those midtones, and then you would just kind of like add highlights through like a white charcoal or something. But in this case, it's really nice. You just kind of lift up. Oh, thank you, Vertigo. I appreciate that. You just kind of like lift up those tones, and it causes the shadows. And really, what you're creating is depth in the picture, so that it gets that more realistic that thing. Not all the portraits that I do turn out as well as this, but that's really what I'm shooting for when I use this technique. And I kind of explained that throughout this process. But hey, you know what? If you have any questions, if I didn't explain something very well, just let me know, and like in the comments or something, or shoot me an email. That's cool too. I will try to explain it better, or just tune in for future ones, and I'm sure I'll come back to it at some point, because I love talking about this stuff. I feel like I enjoy instructing people, so I'm going to try to do more of that in the future. You can see the dog's done, so he's saying, "Oh, Daddy, I want to go outside." So I'm going to go ahead and call this one done. All right. So yeah, tune in probably Friday, and make sure you like and subscribe and all that jazz. All right. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.